All right, we're back for episode 6 of the Throwback Guitar Lounge podcast. Matthew's here with me. The topic today for the guitar argument with Matthew is the tube amp guitar tone myth. Tube amp tone myth. Not tube amp guitar tone myth. There is such thing as a tube amp guitar, as far as I'm aware. But you could also call it the tube amp versus solid state myth, the tube amp versus modeler debate, the tube amps versus, what's the next one? Profiling amp debate. We will explore that in the guitar argument. Tube amps versus, the tube amp myth. What do you think of that, Matthew?
I think it's a hot topic.
Hot topic. The tube amp myth.
I think I will win hands down today.
You're going to defend which side of this? We've already determined that.
I'm going to take the side of the modern.
You're taking the non-tube amp side. I'll defend
the tube. The tone is with the tube amp. It's a myth.
And I will defend the honor of the tube amp. We'll see how that goes. All right, we got the tube amp myth coming up in the guitar argument, but we've also, with the next segment here, we're going to do the throwback mailbox. We get emails every once in a while. We'll go over one of those. We've got a tool and tip segment, guitar argument, the cool down, Matthew's musical musings. Of course, he's always got something great to talk about in his experiences out in the musical wilderness. And I, this week, will have a guitar regret. Up until now, Matthew, has it all been your guitar regrets?
No, you've had one.
This is a big
one.
It's as if you can see from the rundown of the show here, it's called the 10K letdown, $10,000 letdown.
Oh, I thought it was a run.
No, it's not a run of 10. You mean a run of 10,000 guitars?
I thought you did a run of like a 10K run with a guitar.
No.
No.
Or it's maybe my 10,000th guitar.
Or that could have been there.
No, it's the dollar amount of 10K. But stick around for that. You'll see the tragic mistake and the aftermath. Okay, Matthew, before we get on with this to the throwback mailbox, you've decided that you need to promote what we do here at Throwback, which is ultimately making guitar pickups. We do the show as sort of a side thank you to our customers and also as a way to draw people into the Throwback world. But you're going to remind them of what we do with your old-fashioned sales pitch, which you feel you must do. So I have not read this again. You did this last week.
So you have to critique it.
We'll see what's in store.
This is our throwback radio ad number 2. It's just called Coil Winders.
Oh.
So it's supposed to be in the theme of like an old radio ad.
All right, I've really never even heard this. You just gave it to me, and let's hear it.
Looking for the heart and soul of real vintage tone? It all starts with the wind. Throwback wind. Throwback pickups are wound on original vintage spec Lisona, Geo Stevens, and Meteor coil winders, just like the ones they used in Kalamazoo back in the 50s. Why does that matter? Because the way a coil is wound changes the way it sings, and Throwback nails that true PAF magic. No guesswork, no clones, just authentic tone, rich harmonics, and the dynamic response guitarists crave. Whether you're chasing the 59 burst dream or building your ultimate custom tone machine, Throwback delivers real vintage feel from the wind up. Throwback pickups, wound to be heard, built to be legendary. Visit throwback.com and discover why tone starts with the wind.
Oh, is that it?
That's it.
I knew you were going to say tone and then tone machine. There was a very good.
Did you like that?
I love the alliteration there, Matthew.
You want to know a little secret about that?
It was ChatGPT. Was it?
ChatGPT.
You're kidding me.
I corrected just about 5 or 6 things out of this.
Oh man, you're blowing the whole bubble, the whole sort of myth.
Well, the last week I wrote that one. So I wanted to see, okay, I just asked ChatGPT, can you write?
Well, go ahead.
I did. I gave it what I wanted it to do, and I thought that's pretty good. But there's a few mistakes in it, and I sort of corrected those. But I kind of wanted to leave it. See what you thought.
Well, I think that this just shows how well informed ChatGPT is.
No,
it said very complimentary things about it. It knew what we did. You've been experimenting with this.
Yeah.
You're letting out the big secret here.
Well, I think
everybody knows.
Everybody knows people are using this stuff. It's changing.
You said you literally had a conversation with it today about guitar-related matters, and
I was writing, carefully crafting a kind of a question about an upcoming product that we're working on, and then we were going back and forth, and then I had an inkling because it was throwing some ideas at me, and then I was asking it, and then I said, "What do you think of this name?" And I took a couple of different things and put it together, and it knew exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, you read to me what it said, and it literally sounded like someone you had hired as a guitar consultant that knew sort of what the buzzwords and appeal was of what we made to potential customers.
It did. And I just gave it, it was some letters, and it was a hyphen and some numbers. And I said, "What do you think of this name?" And it gave me back about 6 or 7 points explaining why this was good, explaining everything, and then prompting me again, "Would you like me to do this? Would you like me to do that?" I mean, it is kind of astounding.
Well, when you consider, too, how obscure the sort of boutique guitar pickup universe is, and that it actually had, on-target advice for what you were asking is kind of shocking.
No. And I guess they say it's like every single, probably hour, every day, every week.
Yeah, it's getting updated.
It's getting better and better and better.
Yeah. Okay, so you're done with the, we can go on to the throwback.
This is a new segment.
The throwback mailbox. Yeah. Okay, so we're going on to the throwback mailbox. And the reason for this is, frequently enough, we get emails from people that, our response to it has got I guess it's informative to everybody that might be interested in throwback pickups. So this one was this is an email from a customer. Well, I guess they're not a customer, but a hopeful throwback pickup owner. And I'll read the email, and then I will show you the photographs attached to this email that I think will be helpful to those wishing to considering either getting a new throwback pickup or looking for used. So here's the email. "Hi, I bought these pickups," we'll show those in just a second, "used from a guy who said they were throwbacks. I had them shipped to me. The box is all right, but when I took a closer look, I noticed something strange about them. I'm afraid I paid throwback prices for pickups that are not throwbacks. Can you confirm that these are not throwback pickups? Tried to contact the guy, but he is ghosting me." So I will show here the pickups in this email. So the first attachment was a box, and this is a throwback box. I wrote that little that big sticker on the box myself. So this is certainly an authentic throwback DT102 MXV box top. It contained in that box, which made him suspicious, was this pickup. This pickup, he wanted to know if it was a throwback pickup. So the first clue is it doesn't have a throwback sticker on it. I will first start by saying this is absolutely not a throwback pickup. There are a few things that would indicate that. One is the sticker on the back is a PAF sticker, not an authentic PAF sticker, patent applied for sticker. We do not ever ship pickups out with a decal faked to look like an original patent applied for decal. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, so our pickups are all going to have a sticker on the back that says throwback. That's the first thing. Second is beyond the details that I can tell with the base plates as to how ours differ from the base plates on this pickup, it literally has engraved into it BB1, which I'm going to guess means Burstbucker 1 that some previous owner did. These sort of look like Burstbuckers to me. I would guess that since it says BB1, that's probably what it is. So the cautionary part of this is if you think if it's used and you want it to be, you're hoping it's a throwback pickup, it's got to say throwback on it. We do not make any that do not have a throwback sticker on it. And we never make them with a fake patent applied for decal. So that I hope that helps people. Every once in a while we get these. Every once in a while I see a Reverb or eBay listing with someone selling pickups as throwback that aren't. And even sometimes with the sticker faked. I've seen that twice. They were both in Eastern Europe for some reason. But Matthew, do you have any thing to add to the
well, I don't
to
know
this tale?
if you could put the picture back up. One thing that struck me a little bit was the solder spots, like the one at the top. It looks like it hasn't spread out properly. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's sloppy work.
And this one at the bottom is like, is it touching the edge?
Yeah, it's hastily done. It's hastily done, kind of sloppy work. Now, and again, when I say sloppy, it's perfectly functional. Assuming this is a Gibson Burstbucker, their approach to this, if you take the photo as a clue, they have, and I've seen this on Gibson pickups, current production stuff. The edges of the cover you can see are bent in.
Yeah,
that's an effort to close the gap between the edge of the base plate and the cover, so that there's not this wide gap to bridge with the solder. And that is not something we do because our parts fit together perfectly. It's something you might see with a Gibson pickup because you have an assembly time that, you have, again, we've mentioned this before. This is a mass-produced pickup. We are making pickups to order, and this is the sort of thing that would not leave our shop like that. And but in the context of a mass-produced pickup, having bending the sides of the cover in order to make it functionally work, if there's a little gap, and having maybe not the prettiest solder spots on it, it's totally functional and fine, but it's not what you would see coming out of here. So that's another tip off as to whether or not this is a throwback pickup. And you might see that too with a throwback used pickup if someone had removed the covers. Someone that was selling it used and had removed the covers, put them back on. Sometimes you'll see them with covers put back on that are not throwback covers, and that's the sort of stuff you might see. But anyway, that's definitely not a throwback pickup. Yeah. And I feel sorry for the guy because, again, it's kind of like, it's sort of like the PAF thing. They're expensive. People want a deal, and they want to wish a price that might be suspiciously good to be what they hope it would be.
Well, I know we're not in the business of selling used throwback pickups, but I always like to warn people, like to say, I wouldn't do it personally, but if you don't have that luxury, maybe you should only deal with people that you really know.
People that you know, or a store that you're acquainted with. Yeah. But that's not to say that there's not totally legit stuff out there that is used for any manufacturer where people are not trying to deceive. But you have to be educated about it. And this is just an example. And the guy bought something that's too expensive, probably. Well, he paid more. He said himself he paid a throwback price for something that he is concerned isn't throwback, and it's not. Okay. All right, Matthew, that we're going to go on to the tools and tips segment of this. This is one of the most exciting tools that I could imagine.
Okay. Let's see it.
Okay. Now, again, before everybody sees this, my approach to this is that I'm going to give recommendations for tools that are kind of, that everybody should have. Maybe in the future, they'll get more advanced tools. But the key to a good tool is that even the simplest tool needs to have the features and the feel of it and the durability of a tool that you will keep forever. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. This is a ruler. So now this may seem like a very simple tool. This is a little machinist ruler in millimeter scale, Matthew. Now, I think at once upon a time, this might have been controversial. This is a Shinhua
There you go.
brand machinist ruler. 150 millimeters. It's only in a millimeter scale. It's been my experience, and I will reference violin making for this. Violin making, it's exclusively a millimeter world. Millimeter, half millimeter, tenths of millimeter. And I think the guitar community has clued into this years ago as well. It's just so much easier to read a millimeter scale, and it's the perfect scale for adjusting string height and string action and such. So that's what you if you were doing anything to adjust your guitar, you want a thin 150 millimeter flexible or rigid machinist ruler in millimeters. This one is in millimeters and fractions of millimeters. And frankly, I only use the millimeter side of it because with a string, you can. It's just so much easier to reading. You can see when it's half of the millimeter scale, and this is just a quick and precise way to judge your action without running the risk of making a mistake with dealing with 30 seconds and 64ths of an inch.
Right.
With a scale that is subdivided so small that it's easy to miss a little hash mark. So, and I'm pretty sure this is what most people doing professional setup use nowadays but the Shinhua one, this is a Japanese brand.
How much is that one?
It's $7, I think, on Amazon.
Really?
Mine says Japan on it, made in Japan. Although the one on Amazon doesn't say that anymore. I wonder if this is another thing that's ending up being made in China. But these are super high quality. I bought this at the. This is another one of these things I bought at the Tucson Ed Campbell violin workshop I went to years and years ago. I guess more than 20 years ago. And this is one of the items he had for sale. And it's one of those things too. It's like, yeah, it's great. When you see it, this is another thing with a really good tool. When you see it, you're like, yeah, I can tell that thing's the right thing. So, although a very simple little item, I've got several of these, and it's nice to have them handy. I believe it's $7, a little under $7 on Amazon. I will put a link to that in the description, and you can get yourself a 150 millimeter Shinhua ruler. Now, of course, there's other brands, but that's super precise, and you can just tell it's the little hash marks are very fine. Makes it really easy to view and use. So, do you have one, Matthew?
I don't have one.
You should get one.
I've got something at home, but I don't think it's that one's 6 inches long. I don't have mine. I have one, but it's smaller, I think. I'll have to take a look what I've got.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, this I find very useful and highly recommended.
That one I saw it on the package. It said guaranteed accurate to Japanese Industrial Standard B. And it said 7516 grade 1.
Oh, okay. Well,
I don't know exactly
sounds even
what that
better.
means. It's got all this. I guess it's for. I guess that's how accurate it is.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that is the tool of the day and the tip. Get one of those. All right, Matthew. On to the much anticipated guitar argument here. You ready for this?
Now, what is the topic again today?
The topic is tube amp guitar myth. This is, this is for, I guess you would say, since this really has heated up since the Kemper, as to whether or not the tube amp is an obsolete piece of history that people just are clinging on to for nothing other than just sort of nostalgia and kind of keeping the dream alive that they too will be playing Madison Square Garden with their giant Marshall amps, and along with Robert Plant. But
it's an old fantasy, I guess, isn't it?
There's another thought that they sound best, and they always have, and that's why they're still used. That's what we're going to talk about. And you are going to remind everybody which side of this you're going to take.
I'm going to take the con.
The con.
I'm against the
You're against. You're all for solid state onwards.
Yes, upward and onward.
Elimination of the tubes as so much
old baggage,
obsolete technology. Okay.
Horse and wagon.
You're ready. 5 minutes. We got the timer right here. We'll push the button. 5 minutes of heated debate about this, then we will have a reasoned discussion that will cool down the
temperature in the room.
The temperature in the room and the
saner heads may prevail.
Yes. Ready, set, go.
Are you going to take the first go, or am I going to take the first go?
You I like the way you out of.
Oh, you like to come in and
you're very regimented and precise with your reasoned opinions. Let's have you start. I like it. I like that.
Okay. Well, tube amps are a thing of the past because the sound of the new amplifiers coming out are improving by the month. Every year they come out with something a little bit better. But more importantly, it doesn't matter anymore. And you can have the convenience of a very lightweight solid state or modeling amplifier, and you don't have to break your back carrying these things around. You can play a small one at a gig. You don't have to worry about stage volume or blowing people's ears out with an amplifier that's too powerful. Even an 18-watt amplifier can be piercing in a small environment. So you've got the convenience of low weight, portability, easy to use sound, and excellent recreation of all these great tube amplifiers over the years, but in a much more manageable package. Also, you can use these things at home without disturbing the cats, the dogs, and sleeping children, and your spouse, and everything. And it's just the way of the future.
Oh, I see. It does everything then. The replacement to the tube amp, whether we're talking about a high quality transistor amp, or a modeling amp, or a profiling amp, it does everything you want from a tube amp and more, is your assertion. It's lighter. You don't have to deal with. You can have the tone you want at any volume, and you can get all of the tube amp tone without the
maintenance hassles,
without the
breakage, and
so. No.
What do you say about the poor tube amplifier? Defend it.
Okay, well, you would agree though that the aspiration of the solid state amp is to sound like a tube amp, correct? Since that is the desired tone, I mean, they at least have to be able to duplicate it. Maybe they can do that and more, I guess, if you want to take your side of it. But the first part of this is they need to duplicate what already exists, which is the tube amp tone, right? So at best, it is going to be a recreation of tube amp tone, and so wouldn't it make more sense to start with the tube amp and just shortcut this whole nonsense that somehow there is a non-tube amp in existence that somehow is a tube amp? By its very definition, it can't be a tube amp because there's no tubes in it. Yet that's what they all want to do. They want to sound like a tube amp. And why? Because it's cheaper to produce. So you have the corporate greed factor with this. Produce a cheaper product, but claim that it is the equivalent of the more expensive, but raise your profit margin in order to stick it to the customer. And create a false narrative that makes it somehow sound as if it's as good as the tube amp that it's trying to duplicate. So I think that that's probably a very transparent ploy to get people to part with their hard-earned cash and enrich those trying to claim that they're making something that is a tube amp, which isn't. So, again, would you take a cheap plastic recreation of Michelangelo's David because the marble original is just too heavy? The beautiful masterpiece.
Well, I'm not playing one of those on stage.
You'd take a 3D printed version of it, wouldn't you?
I'm not playing that on stage. You have to realize too.
Just because it's lighter,
my back is getting.
I'm
getting older. My hearing is going.
Masterpiece. You'd say no to the masterpiece in order to save the effort of just carrying something a little heavier.
What does that sound mean?
That means our tournament's up.
Our timer's up.
I think I win there, Matthew. I think you do.
No, you have to look at the audience. I mean, these rock stars that are on stage now, I guess they're all listening to in-ear monitors and stuff, but they don't have to deal with the kind of on-stage volume they once had to.
Yeah.
But
well, okay. Let's go to the cool down because I've thought about this.
Go ahead.
And I think everybody who has got an amp. You know, that's if you played long enough. Actually, if you're just a beginner, you're like, "What amp do I get?" Let's say you're a serious beginner. You want to know what amp can I get that I will keep for I want to get a good amp. I don't want to get a disposable amp. I want to get something that I will be happy to play now and happy to play as I progress as a player. Right? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about this? I think. Well, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, sure. Where do you want to go with it?
Well, I think that there's a practical aspect to it in that makes a non-tube amp very attractive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the practical aspect is a weight, is a big one. Reliability. Well, I guess I shouldn't say reliability. Tube amps are very reliable, but they require maintenance. But you don't have this maintenance issue, in theory, with a solid state or some version of a solid state amp, computer, integrated circuit amp, whatever version of it you want to try. But you also have this added difference with a tube amp and a solid state amp, that although the tube amp is higher maintenance, it is made, especially if you get one that's point to point, you have an amp that is made to be maintained over many years. Whereas the downside potentially to a solid state integrated circuit amp is that what happens when the very small components that are probably mounted to surface mount components and integrated circuits at some point fail. These are probably now. Do these amps get repaired in the future? I guess is the question.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you have a Tech 21 that is, how old do you think that is? About 20 years old?
I think they stopped making those 10 years ago.
10 years ago. So
and
they're probably dated, but those are still working. But that's a good question because I've got a 66 Fender Bassman out there, and I just had it recently worked on, and we featured it, I think in maybe the first or second episode, and that's a great sounding amplifier. And it had a major overhaul in it, but I brought it back to its original specs. It sounds great. I think that's when, like, if I was trying to encourage, if someone came to me and said, what amplifier should I buy, my first amplifier, if you were just starting out, I guess I'd be kind of pointing them toward a Tone Master or some kind of a modeling type amplifier. But the beauty, I think, of tubes is when you discover them, is like they are touch sensitive. They're kind of organic. They react differently how you play, and they react to the volume levels. And when you get a little better, you realize, oh, this is what people are talking about with the tube amplifier.
Yeah, as far as what I own, and there's kind of two parts to the tube amp solid state question for me. One is I do have, so as far as what I have that you would consider solid state or modeling amp, I have the Blues Cube Artist, which is a very nice amp. I have a Deluxe Reverb Tone Master, which is a very nice sounding amp, and I have the Tech 21 Trademark 60, and just got that recently. I also have a Fender Princeton solid state, Princeton Chorus.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds really good. In fact, I got it because it was so cheap and sounded really good. But this is what is the potential, and often this is the what I find is often the problem with the solid state or modeling amp. I will use the Tone Master Deluxe Reverb as an example. In practice here, it sounds great compared to the Deluxe Reverb. At a gig, it sounds great compared to a Deluxe Reverb, a tube-driven Deluxe Reverb. But when you actually do the next gig with the tube amp, you realize there is just a little extra to give with the tube amp when you dig in at sort of the limits of the amp. There's a little extra there with the tube amp in terms of volume and just sensation that when you increase the attack, you're getting more out of the amp. At some point with the Tone Master Deluxe Reverb, when you kind of reach the limits of its headroom, you just feel it's compressing. And you really notice that at sort of gig volume. We played last year at an outdoor venue, very nice restaurant. We play outdoors, and I did back-to-back gigs, one with a 64 reissue Deluxe Reverb, and then with the Tone Master Deluxe Reverb. And you could tell. I'm sure no one else could tell in the audience. It did not sound bad. It sounded very good. But playing it, you can just there's something I'm not getting out of this extra when I kind of am trying to feel I need it.
I remember that.
With Pick Attack. And and the other musicians can hear it. And I think that the remedy to this actually might be, let's say you had a Deluxe Reverb at a gig, and then you had a Tone Master Deluxe Reverb. I think if you had two Tone Master Deluxe Reverbs, you probably wouldn't have that same sensation. Because you've spread out you're getting more volume, and not before you have to deal with this potential headroom issue. But I think if you were going to get a first amp, something like the Tone Master Deluxe Reverb is a great choice, because you certainly could gig with it and be totally happy with it without hesitation. It's just, if you do get the tube version of it and are faced in a gigging situation, I think you're going to start to notice it. It's subtle, but it's enough that I think if you're an intermediate or advanced player, you're going to sense that you're missing a little bit of something that is enjoyable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. Now, I don't know that this is quite the same problem with a totally analog circuit. The reason I say that is that the Tech 21 Trademark 60 that I've been playing at practice, the last band rehearsal, the last 3 times.
Twice, I think.
Twice. It, at least with the Strat, I'm not running into that experience. Maybe it's because Strat pickups are a lower output pickup, but I don't feel like I'm kind of hitting the limitations of it in the same way that I am with a computerized modeling amp like the Tone Master Deluxe.
So you're saying that circuit is an analog circuit?
I believe it's totally analog. I think that you could kind of consider that and the Tech 21 Trademark 60 is probably the high water mark of an analog combo that's trying to sound like a tube amp. And it does a really good job with it. The things you notice, though, different with a tube amp are, I think you get a little more articulation on the low end with the totally analog non-tube Tech 21 Trademark 60. In a way, it's kind of nice if you're doing the very sort of staccato notes. You really you can really feel that you're getting a quick response from it, or articulate response from is probably a better word. Whereas if you're doing that with, let's say, a deluxe reverb on the edge of breakup, it's now going to be a little bit, it's just a little bit less defined sort of feel and tone to it. It's not bad, but you do notice that as a difference. And in a way, it's kind of a nice part of the Tech 21.
But you find the response on the Tech 21 is quick. It doesn't feel like there's a delay from when you sort of hit a note to you hearing it.
No, I don't think there's a delay like you might get with an integrated circuit, computerized setup, like what you're getting with the Tone Master. But like as far as no latency, you don't get that feeling,
right?
Or no sort of lag that's any different than a tube amp. And to be fair, you don't feel that way with the Tone Master Deluxe Reverb either. But the weight thing is a real thing. The Tone Master Deluxe Reverb is super light. Although the Trademark 60 Tech 21 is still kind of heavy. It's not it's not heavy.
I haven't picked it up.
It's not like a tube amp, but it's not super light. And the advantage of that one is they have a companion cabinet that if you bring it to a gig, you can raise the headroom of the whole deal by having this sort of satellite cabinet for it that's powered on its own. But we haven't even talked about the Kemper.
Yeah, the Kemper. We should talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I don't own a Kemper, but one reason I haven't taken the plunge to get something like a Kemper is that you'll hear people mention this. It sounds like it's really. And maybe this is another thing that people don't think about with modeling amps. At home in recording, it's probably the ideal thing. And if you're playing live and you have in-ear monitors, it's probably the perfect thing. Or if you're playing live and you don't have in-ear monitors, but you have an FR cabinet pointed at you to get to hear yourself, it's probably the perfect thing. But for a bar gig, it's probably not the right thing. And I mentioned this before. All of these FR cabinets have a closed back. And if you're playing a bar gig, if you don't have a monitor, if you're not mic'd up and you don't have a monitor for the guitar, for the drummer, and that you can run the guitar signal through, the drummer has to hear out the back of your speaker or amp cabinet to hear you. And so they're really set up, something like a Kemper or any of these other sort of variations of them from other brands. I think they're really set up for recording, which I'm sure they're great for. And probably the most logical thing if you want a streamlined setup. And they're for the most advanced stage setups, but for a smaller gig, you still want a tube amp or something that's like a combo with an open back.
I saw Weezer 2 years ago at Pine Knob in Clarkston, Michigan, and they apparently were using Kempers.
Yeah.
For the two guitar players. The bass player had a like one or two cabinets on stage, but all the guitars were running through Kempers. And they sounded very good, and I guess Metallica uses Kempers.
Yeah.
And their touring setup.
Yeah, these are people that have
massive PAs.
Massive PAs. They have a professional front of house person that is going to make sure everything sounds great. And it's probably, think of all of the headaches with maintenance that are avoided with a setup like that over a tube amp or the tube, especially tube amps at the power required to do that sort of volume.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like I think you can't go wrong with a good tube combo. And think of your advanced, medium, intermediate to advanced, or even a serious beginner, getting a classic tube amp from Fender or anybody else that makes high quality stuff, you can't go wrong with that. But I don't think you can go wrong with something like a Tone Master or a Tech 20, one of these old Trademark 60s, or any of the Tone Master amps. But I do think when you are comparing the two, at some point you're going to compare the equivalent tube amp if you do a gig, and you're going to notice that little bit of difference. And you're going to think like, yeah, the tube amp's got a little bit of something extra. All right. Do you think we've exhausted the? We've. I
think we did well with that.
Did
topic.
everything we can do with the tube amp versus tube amp tone myth. So was it a myth? Is it a myth? I think the fact that everybody's trying the goal of these modelers is to duplicate the sound of a tube amp means that it's not a myth.
I'd say right now it's still alive, but they're trying to match it. And I mean, do you remember when Fender came out with the Cyber Twin, and then there was a Cyber Deluxe? I mean, that was supposed to be this great leap forward.
Yeah. And
those are kind of dinosaurs now. They didn't improve, but now it's the Tone Master, and there's always, there's a march toward trying to duplicate the stuff. So the myth is not a myth. It exists. It's real.
Well, also you have a re-release of amps like the Mesa Boogie Mark II C+. So these sort of iconic amps that are that one associated with Metallica, that people for years became highly collectible because there was this little window they were made in, and then forever after, people want they want one to be they want it to be recreated. So there's a reason for that too. Okay,
maybe that's the way to get people, young people, back into guitar. You put them in front of a powerful amp. I mean, I remember a friend got a Fender Twin, brought it down to his basement, and I just remember how ungodly loud it was. But at the same time, it was like he wouldn't let you jump on it, too quickly. Like, can I try that thing? Because I mean, it sounded with a pedal or two in front of it.
Yeah.
But 100 watts or 80 watts, whatever it was loud.
All right, Matthew, we're going on to your musical musings here. You've got something to say about.
Oh yeah, no, I wanted to. I'm okay. Whatever. Wait.
you've got something to say about well, a famous musician that
Well,
don't want to get ghoulish, but you have you.
no, well, I'll talk about norms. I'll talk about this first.
Oh, good.
then we'll
Forget what I said about.
So where do I go here? Right here? Could people see that?
Oh yeah.
So this is in. I think they're advertising in the. This is the latest vintage guitar. So people have probably seen this. There's a Norm's Rare Guitar documentary I watched it on Netflix. I think it's on a few different streaming services, but it's. I'm sure people have watched it, but I just thought. Have you seen it yet?
I've seen some of it. I haven't watched the whole thing.
It's a good documentary. I guess it took them quite a while to do it. They've been working on it for quite a while. But if people don't know, and I'm sure everyone knows who Norman Harris is, he's got Norman's Rare Guitars in Tarzana, California. It's the go-to sort of vintage guitar store in California. And then he's famous for being a consultant on movies like, and I didn't realize this until today, Bound for Glory. Have you ever seen Bound for Glory?
Mm-mm.
That's the Hal Ashby directed film with David Carradine in the starring role as Woody Guthrie. It's a Woody Guthrie book.
Yeah, I've seen the movie.
That's
yeah.
good.
That's got a sort I think he's got a mahogany banner headstock. Is it a J35 or J45 in that movie?
You'd know better than I do.
Yeah, I remember him.
Do you think is it accurate? I wonder.
I think it probably. I don't know.
Hopefully, it is.
I think it's accurate to that era.
And then, so the movie goes through Norm's career and then some of the movies that he's dealt with and all the celebrities that people that have come to the store over the years. But some of the other movies were The Last Waltz. I didn't realize he worked on The Last Waltz.
Really?
He was a consultant for that. And then if everyone knows that he worked on the Spinal Tap. That's probably the most famous calling card.
Yes.
And then to follow up a little bit what we did last week, we talked about the Back to the Future guitar. Norm's Rare Guitars apparently rented that guitar to the production people for Back to the Future in
so
84.
He probably has it or knows where it is. It's so. Are you telling me that whole thing with the Michael J. Fox was a sham?
Well,
just a show business sham to try to drum up interest in something that's coming that, again, designed to take dollars out of the pockets of
I didn't know.
Unsuspecting customers.
I did a little bit of more research this week. I couldn't find this last week, but apparently what's going on with that whole, we talked about it in episode 5, it's Lost to the Future. So they're looking for the Gibson ES 345 that was used in Back to the Future. It apparently been lost. It was rented, and then it came back to the store.
I know who's got it.
And
it's Joe Bonamassa.
maybe he's hiding it somewhere. But apparently,
he's got all of them, doesn't he?
Apparently, what's going on is that that Lost to the Future is a documentary that they're working on. That Mark Agnesi at Gibson is working on, and it's being directed by a guy by the name of Doc Kreutzer, and he did the remake of Roadhouse. He directed that film with Jake Gyllenhaal. Okay. So that may be what they're trying to do is they're trying to cap off the documentary by finding this guitar. It's got to the point. They need an ending, so now can they find the guitars?
Well, they sounded very sincere in that thing about the Lost to the Future. They weren't. I don't think.
Well, Mark
seemed very concerned that with no show business involved in the presentation of that.
In this, some of the research I did this week, Mark Agnesi said he started looking for that guitar at Norm's when he started there in 2009.
Oh, well, okay. Well, then,
so
sounds like a sincere effort then.
It's a touchstone for a lot of these, for a whole generation of people, that movie. So they're trying to find it. So,
all right. Now, so you mentioned Norm's Rare Guitars. I actually have a guitar right here from Norman's Rare Guitars.
Just one?
Just one. I've only ever bought one. It's not terribly rare. When we were at NAMM in, what was it? Would this be 2018, 2017?
Yeah, it was pre-COVID.
And they have this, what is it? The guitar show that they had at the time, kind of.
And what is it called? Is it
the Bimini Brothers? I don't know. It's something brother. I forgot.
It was at the Orange County Fairgrounds, I believe.
Yeah, and went there, and Norman was there with someone from the store, and they were leaving when we got there. And my impression I got is he's there from the beginning, and people bring stuff in and he buys it. So he had stacks of cases. And I said to him, I said, hey, I went there thinking like I want to get a certain guitar if I see it. And I saw the stacks of cases, and I could tell one of the cases would likely be what I was looking for. And I pointed to the case. I said, is that a such and such? And he said, yes. And I said, can I take a look at it? I'm interested in buying it. And he showed it to me, and he gave me I was interested. He gave me a fair price, and I didn't have the cash right there, but I said, I will call you when I get home, and can I get it over the phone? And he was fine with that. And I got a nice guitar out of it. And he was very nice to work with in a very short sort of period of time.
Yeah, it was a quick deal.
But I'll show the guitar. This guitar looks exactly like the guitar I showed last week, but I'll show it. What the heck?
And wait a minute, drum roll, please.
That's right. Matthew thought that these
reveals
reveals are worthy of a drum roll. So there it is. It's probably.
We went with the Tiffany.
All right, I'll start again. Oh, well, it's done doing its thing there. So, okay. Well, let's start
go to
again.
the full screen. Oh, we're going to do it again.
Okay. I think that there. Here it is. You can tell it's a Stratocaster. And we'll go to full screen here. This is, Matthew, we've got you in the shot now, too. Wow. This is a 1985 AVRI Stratocaster. Now, the one last week was an 86. 57 reissue. This is an 85. Actually, it's a three-piece body. This isn't the most well-matched piece there. But sounds really good. And I've done some gigs with it. Again, I really like these 85 to 87, sometimes 88 Strats. But he thought it was an 86, and when I took it apart, it's actually an 85. 85s are more expensive. They're considered more collectible, I think, because people hope that they are actually made at the old plant in the
Fullerton plant?
Yeah, the Fullerton plant. But I think there's some open debate as to whether or not they had moved by then. But these still go for more, so I actually kind of got a good deal on it because he thought it was an 86, but it's really an 85. If you're looking at these things, one thing that varies with the early ones have if it's 85, and I think above, these knobs are a little different plastic that's slightly translucent, which these have. And there are a few other features that kind of are tip-offs to that. But, again, these play very well. And I'm not the only one that likes these. So I feel a good purchase. But we'll put that back. And you have any? Were you going to add something to that?
Well, I just wanted to tell people that we have a slight connection. Well, it's not more than a slight connection with somebody that works at Norm's Rare Guitar.
You're talking. Okay, go on.
So we'll let you put that up. So the luthier at Norman's Rare Guitars is a gentleman by the name of Masa Kondo, who is a rep for a Japanese distributor who imports throwback pickups into Japan. So we first met Masa. I had no idea that he worked there.
Yeah, neither did I. Yeah, and I didn't realize how sort of knowledgeable and skilled he was at the repair and luthier aspect of it, until you found out what the connection with Norm's Rare Guitar was for him. So that he's their sort of repair luthier there. And I think we mentioned it before in a previous podcast. We see him every year at NAMM, and it means a lot to hear complimentary. He gives us complimentary feedback about what we make, and it's great because you know that this is a guy that really has an unusual level of experience with the instruments that contain the pickups that we strive to recreate. And and he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
So that's always.
Mas is featured in the documentary. Right, he has a sit down little right near the end, but you see him a couple times in the documentary, working there at his luthier desk.
Yeah. That's got to be a very interesting job over the years. I think you mentioned his connection. He had a connection with Norm for years and years and years.
He mentioned he says that himself in the film that he's known Norm a long time and wanted to work there. I think when he first met him and things. So I don't know the whole story. We might have to get it out of him, but okay. Yeah, you must see a lot of interesting things.
Yeah. Okay, well, so this goes on. We're going now on to the Guitar Regret segment, Matthew.
Oh, hang on. I got one other thing.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I jumped the gun on this. There is one other part of Matthew's musical musings that is...
Can people see that? Can you go to the wide shot?
Go on the wide shot. Okay, here.
Okay, so that's my tour program from a show that Brian Wilson did here in Grand Rapids in November of 2018.
Yes.
So he did it was the Pet Sounds tour, and they did 30 songs, and
that's a lot.
Yeah, and the tickets were very reasonable. I convinced my oldest daughter Kathleen to come, and that was a nice evening. And he finished up with "Love and Mercy," the title track from his first solo record, and that's a great song. But he was in good form, and I was amazed to think, my gosh, that was nearly 7 years ago.
Wow, yeah.
Time goes by, but there was obviously Brian Wilson passed this week, and certifiable sort of American genius when it comes to music. So
yeah, he was 82 years old. Is that correct?
He was 82. He was just shy of his 83rd birthday.
Yeah, also amazing to think of how influential the Pet Sounds was to people like the Beatles.
Yeah, without that, no Sgt. Pepper's, And then at the same time, he talks, you can see so many interviews right now that are circulating again. And he talks, Capitol Records didn't know what to do with it. The Beach Boys didn't like it. And he was like, we need to progress. We need to do more than just, surfing songs.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Certainly a sort of someone whose legacy in music in the past and today goes on forever, just by way of that influence. Okay, so we're going to go on to the Guitar Regret, Matthew. Here, I jumped the gun just a second ago. I've tried to blot this Guitar Regret out, and I'll set it up. So I may have the dates wrong here. This is a guitar. Again, Matthew's done the Guitar Regret. These are stories of either loss or guitar loss or guitar mistakes. Something you wish you could take back. You maybe a regretted purchase, which this is. So I'll set it up. I think it was probably 2008 or so. Kind of, I think this is the right date. It's kind of the peak of the vintage price arc.
Just before the financial.
Yeah, I think
downturn.
that's when it was. This is when eBay was still only for auctions, right? So you could have people that would bid on, a guitar that looked like a cigar box with a stick stuck to it, but if it said Gibson, everybody would want it. So, all right. So if it was at Gibson from the 50s, yeah, everybody would want it, and it would get bid up. So there was a Les Paul that had been refinished on eBay. I had been searching for months to get a good deal on a vintage player grade Les Paul. This I thought fit the bill, And the bidding was in the neighborhood of where I thought I could reasonably get it. And it had a broken headstock that was repaired, and it had been poorly refinished. And by poorly, I mean someone had taken the finish off and put a varnish on it with a rag. So, and that's what it looked like, at least. So I don't have the original photos of that listing, but the upshot of it is I ended up winning the bid for this guitar. And the bid, I have sort of blotted it out, but I think it was just under $10,000. It was a 50, I think was probably a 1955 Les Paul Standard, a gold top. And I will show the pictures of, ultimately, this guitar. I got it, and I actually received an email from Kim LaFleur, the late, great Kim LaFleur of Historic Makeovers, who told me, he said that was a good deal. Now, this is before he saw what kind of... I bought this guitar thinking that I could get the headstock repaired properly, and I would have just all the original parts were all there. This is what made it attractive. Original parts were all there. It just needed a refin, a good refinish, with the exception of the top hat knobs, which were not original. All of the other original parts were there, and you would have yourself a vintage 55 or 56 Les Paul gold top on the cheap. And the reason I say 55 or 56 is that the serial number had been obliterated with the refinish, or it had been totally stripped and then refinished very poorly with varnish.
And at that time, what was that guitar in total perfect condition going forward?
I don't know. I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember. I remember thinking $10,000 is a lot, and it's probably too much, but since everything's there, it's just a diamond in the rough.
It's a little bit of elbow grease, and you've got yourself a...
And I felt this was confirmed when Kim LaFleur, who, I don't know if he was a customer at the time, I think he was, but he emailed me. He said, "Oh, I was bidding on that too. You think you got a good deal?" Okay, so I got it. And I will show the pictures before. Now, ultimately, Kim LaFleur at Historic Makeovers did the work on this, and the good news is the guitar now is great. But this is what I got. But these are photos of the guitar that I paid $10,000 for. Maybe it was slightly under, but let's just say it's $10,000. Without the parts, that I stripped the parts off before I sent it off to Kim LaFleur at Historic Makeovers to be refinished. Okay. So obviously it's a gold top. Again, I had all the original parts with the exception of the knobs. It even had the poker chip and everything. Pick guard, everything. It's a 3-piece top there. Here's another angle. Not so far, not too bad. I mean, it's got the original fretboard there in binding, right? Not horrible condition as far as that goes. But this is the part that I wasn't anticipating. Before I got the guitar, the listing had a metal plate over the front of the headstock that was there to reinforce it, holding it all together. But I thought, like, when that comes off, a skilled luthier is going to be able to fix this, because you hear neck breaks are fixable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is, once I took the plate off, this is what I had. Okay, now the problem with this is it's really, really, really horribly broken, like fractured. And ultimately, this is not repairable by gluing anything back together. This is, when I took the plate off, this is basically came apart.
So did all the other pieces just crumble apart? Or what,
the other part was on the headstock, which I have actually over there somewhere. But I knew enough with the repair work to know that the fractured part of this in the top right is it's too far gone. And when you consider all the other splintering that's going on there to repair, it's not going to be a solid repair. I did not think, without so much work that it's probably not realistic to do anything other than a re-neck. So anyway, that led me on a journey to get a neck for this thing. I ultimately, Kim LaFleur had a neck made. He had several necks made, and that's what ended up on this guitar. But in my quest to get necks, I found I think a 80s era, no, not 80s, maybe probably sometime in the 90s era neck on eBay that had never been unfinished neck that somehow came from Gibson. But I also, in this time, got an email from Max Baronet, the famous Les Paul repro guy that I think is most famous for making the Slash. Is it Appetite for Destruction burst?
Okay.
Yeah, and he emailed me because he knew that we made very accurate PAFs, and he wanted some base plates. And I said, well, we don't sell the parts, but can I trade a neck for some base plates? And he said, sure. So I have a Max Baronet neck. I probably should have had it here for the show, but it's very accurate looking. It's got inlays on the fingerboard, and the fingerboard's not glued on, and the binding's not scraped down. But I'm guessing I'm one of the few people that has a Max Baronet replacement neck.
So you didn't put that neck on?
I didn't put that in it because Kim said I can take. He thought he could remove the fingerboard off of this neck. Okay. Salvage it with the binding, and put it on one of the necks he had made, and he did it beautifully. So although this is a guitar regret, it has a reasonably happy conclusion, and I will reveal that now. So drum roll.
And now.
Okay, we're back. It is right here.
To the wide.
It is a. I'll go to a wide shot. It's right there. I don't want to.
Go ahead.
So now I don't know if you can see now. So I'll show some. Now there's actually a few guitar regrets with this still. It's all here. The neck looks great. The original fingerboard's on there. Of course, it needed a refret. I have the original covers, but they're so warped and shrunken that I put some of our repro covers on this. But I've got the originals. Poker Chip's original. Tailpiece is original. Interesting detail about this tailpiece. So the lore with Gibson parts is they never copper plated anything before they put nickel on it, and that is true with PAF covers, but it's not exclusively true with something like a tailpiece. This is worn through on the top here. Maybe I can show this. Maybe not, but that little ridge there is worn through the nickel, and underneath it is some copper before it makes its way through to the alloy, lightweight alloy below. So this part did get a copper preplate. My guess is that they did that because this is such a porous material that you'll see chrome ones of these from the 60s flaking, the late 60s. But my guess is they did this because it's such a porous material that the copper helped fill it and helped the nickel stick to it. But anyway, all of the parts here, it does now have original knobs on it, 50s era knobs. And the re-neck is so good and you can't tell from this, but it's nicely checked.
Yeah, it looks nice.
And it's checked in a freezer. I sent this to him, and I think he had it in his possession, not because he didn't have it done, but because I wanted to just not think about it. And he said over a couple of years, he put it in and out of the freezer several times, a deep freeze, to get natural checking on this. And so it doesn't look like it's got sort of the razor blade checking. It looks totally legit as far as that goes.
I noticed in one of the pictures before, when you got it, that there was a bit of a gouge in the control knob area. Did that get filled in?
I think he must have filled it in and maybe steamed out some of it. But yeah, as far as the gouges go, those are gone.
Those are gone.
And the reason I say this was a 55 is because I guess two of the details here are, if I can take this off without destroying this $500 switch tip or whatever these things cost now, is that the little flat top on this switch tip. Can I get this? Oh, that's that one right there. Yeah, it's not focusing on it. That little sort of flat and less rounded top is apparently a signature of a 55. Did I say 55?
55.
Yeah, of a 55 era. And also the stud anchors for this were shorter, and this was leaning. I took those out, and I had some longer ones that were original vintage pieces that I got from Pete Moreno, who once worked for Gibson. Put those in here. But I think that means that this was ultimately really a 55. So the first of the Tune-o-matic Gold Top Les Paul standards. But the guitar regret with this was that when you get a guitar re-necked like this, I kind of felt that I had a little bit of a responsibility to whoever the future owner of this was, to not have someone get it thinking that it was never re-necked. Right. So part of it is I did a serial number that was 56, but it's based, the numbers are based upon my birth date, So it's some variation of my birth year and date. In month, but the other is I put a stinger on the headstock. I had Kim do it, but I had him put one on the heel too. Now this is a little bit too odd, right? It's not too odd, and now the reason I did that is there is actually a precedent for this. There is a Gold Top out there that has a heel stinger. So I thought, well, this will be the only. This will cue people into knowing that this is not, to the unsuspecting, it's going to cue them in that this is a re-neck guitar. And it's a kind of a cool look, but maybe it would have been better not to do that. I don't know. But I like it. I like it quite a lot. So the sounds great. Has the original everything except the covers, which are I have, but not on the guitar right now. Okay, let's put that back. And do you have any questions about this wonderful guitar?
You'll have to include this guitar and the story of it and everything in your the coffee table book on guitars, and then you can.
No one reads books anymore, Matthew.
Well, they look at them, no? And then then the guitar becomes a celebrity guitar.
Yeah. Now remember, I actually said that it looked like it was finished with a rag and varnish. I don't know if you can see this. I think I got it all off, but they had literally rubbed varnish over the control plate and switch covers. I had to sand it off with micro mesh.
Really? Because
they had actually varnished over the plastic. I think it's gone now.
And that, I guess, was typical. That's for more brown kind of stain.
Yeah, this
for that
is
period.
Yeah, and there are dark backs. I don't know if you see 55 dark backs. They could be lighter too. But this is not an unusual color for a Gold Top from that era. Okay, I'm putting it back.
Put it back up. We need a bumper of music for the return.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So that's it.
That winds up episode 6.
That's it. The guitar, the $10,000 letdown. Now, what do you think that? Did you look into what this is worth? I don't want to look into what it's worth.
I didn't get a chance to.
I think it could be worth, more than $10,000 probably, but I don't know. I think it probably would have been better off not doing it, but it all turned out well. Thanks to Kim LaFleur, who was a customer of ours, and in retrospect still is. It was a very, very nice person to deal with, and wish he were around. Okay, let's. Do we have anything to talk about with our next episode before we finish up here, Matthew? Oh, I know what we can talk about. We had our first throwback podcast, or not podcast, live stream for S Throwback Thursday yesterday.
Right.
So if you were present for that, we thank you, and we're planning to do one next week also. So the schedule here is, if we do a podcast, a Guitar Lounge podcast, we're going to have that on Saturdays, release that on Saturdays, and as Throwback Thursday, we're going to aim for
3 p.m.
3 p.m. Thursday, and we'll try to keep that. We don't know if we're going to do one every week, but we're going to do another one next week. It may be a monthly thing, but we'll see.
So we'll do 3 p.m. Eastern,
3 p.m.
12 Pacific.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're still on the Eastern time zone, being in Michigan. Okay, let's wrap this up, Matthew.
All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
We've successfully completed another episode of the Throwback Guitar Lounge podcast, and we hope everybody comes back for episode number 7. Matthew, did you know that most podcasts end after episode 7?
I've heard that rumor.
We're not going to do that.
No. We want to get our subscriber numbers up too, so please subscribe.
That's right.
Tell your friends.
Yes, tell everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.